what protects the country? What protects the Constitution? What protects customs and conventions the best?
Freedom.
And it's not a perfect choice all the time, but that's a decision real conservatives make. And that's what Liz Cheney's doing. Real conservatives love their country and want it to continue and want the Constitution to endure.
First of all, it is a striking visual, isn't it, to see Vice President Harris and Congresswoman Liz Cheney on a stage together, knowing that Harris has Cheney's support, has Dick Cheney's support, given the history of the Cheney family and the Republican Party, the way Democrats have felt about them historically. That is quite an image. But Liz Cheney, you're right, Joe, is making the case to those Nikki Haley Republicans, to those Mitt Romney Republicans, those John McCain Republicans, George W. Bush, H.W. Bush, Reagan Republicans, and reminding them this is who we are and this is who we've been. We defend the Constitution. We push back against aggressors like Russia. And we want legal immigration in this country. It's an important part of who we are, as Ronald Reagan said in his farewell speech as he left the White House. So she's saying effectively, I haven't changed. All the people around me in this Republican Party, or at least in the MAGA movement, they are the ones who've changed. They are the ones who are following an autocrat down this path. And she said, you don't have to do this. Here is the way. She said even, you know, you can go to quiet of that ballot booth and vote your conscience, right, and nobody ever has to know what you did. If it's uncomfortable at your kitchen table in your community to vote for Kamala Harris or to not vote for Donald Trump, no one has to know. Go in the box and vote your conscience. That was her message in this barnstorming tour yesterday with Kamala Harris.
You know, Willie, you were working yesterday elsewhere. So we didn't get a chance to talk about all the things that happened, but to attach a line from what Liz Cheney said to what we're saying about conservatives wanting to uphold the Constitution and Madisonian democracy over the weekend. And I'm curious what your reaction was to Donald Trump repeatedly saying that he was going to go after his political opponents, that they were the enemy within, that Nancy Pelosi was the enemy within, that Schiff was the enemy within, that CBS News should be shut down, that all of these anti-democratic, all of these pro-autocratic lines that Donald Trump is putting in all of his interviews and seemingly all of his speeches. And again, what's jarring to me is he's been pushed back on by Sean Hannity, but he doubled down. He's been pushed back on by Laura Ingraham, but he's doubled down. He was pushed back on Howie Kurtz. He's doubled down. He was pushed back on Harris Faulkner, and he's doubled down. He is laying the precedent. Why else would somebody make statements that were against their interest, which is, I'm going to be an autocrat. I am going to call my opponent's enemy combatants the enemy within and go after them, which he keeps promising to doing, even as conservative, pro-Trump Fox News hosts keep saying, but you don't really mean that to you. And he says, yes, I do. What does that mean for Americans?
Yeah, that's that common interview we've seen on Fox News where the interviewer tries to coach Donald Trump to the right answer and he refuses. My reaction is, how many times does he have to say these things before people start to believe him? These are not one-offs. Right. These are not slips of the tongue. This is his campaign narrative, that he is going to seize power and do what he wants with it. And believe me, all the people who are there now, who provide some kind of a bumper or a guardrail against his autocratic tendencies are going to be long gone, and they'll be installed because they'll go along with what he says. The Arnold Palmer comments got a lot of attention over the weekend. They were strange and amusing in some respects, some projection there, obviously. But what was more serious was what you said, Joe, which is the repeated, again, not one-offs, repeated insistence about what he's going to do with his power should he get it back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he keeps making that promise. And Mika, it's in making that promise, he's laying a precedent. And as Bill Maher said this weekend, he said, it's not Trump derangement syndrome to quote Donald Trump, because that's what people say. They go, oh, you've got Trump derangement syndrome because you're saying these crazy things. no, all we're doing is quoting what Donald Trump keeps saying, even when Fox News hosts keep trying to push him off of
right.
it. And that's a promise. And
it's also
it's almost his closing campaign statement.
Right. It's also a playbook to have Fox News back him up, avoid it, whatever, say he didn't mean it, but to say these things that are literal and dangerous and true. And he's carried out similar threats before, we've seen it, but also, as you mentioned, Willie, to sort of pepper them with crazy talk about genitalia and other things that distract people. Perhaps they'll focus on it, or focusing on his swaying and sitting there for 39. I mean, that's disturbing. Not as disturbing as saying you'll use the military to go after your political rivals. As we get to some new polls from AP and NORC, just one final point about Kamala Harris and Liz Cheney and seeing them up on stage together, talking about democracy and talking about the dangers of a second Trump administration. I just found it striking as well to see two women of wisdom and experience from two completely different backgrounds and two completely different points of view being the example, holding up the pillars of freedom together. It was really impressive, and I hope young women everywhere and everyone everywhere takes a look at what they are doing right now in this moment where what is needed is strength to stand up and speak out and not to cower. All right, we're going to sneak in a quick 90-second break to load up that new polling I just mentioned that shows a dramatic shift when it comes to how voters view the presidential candidates. Morning Joe is back in a moment.
If you're shopping for a home, you could browse hundreds of listings, or you could compare home details all at once. Home values to find that hidden bargain. Lot sizes for more room to play. Year built for that mid-century original. And market hotness to buy in the hot neighborhood before it's a hot neighborhood. Search in full color and find the home that has it all. Home search will never be the same again.
That's my line. There's no place like Target to shop everything wicked.
When I worked for Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan, I learned about commitment. Senator Moynihan committed his life to government service. This is what commitment looks like. Building New York's newest train station was Senator Moynihan's idea. It took 30 years and never giving up. When we register to vote, we make a lifetime commitment to democracy, a commitment to vote for all levels of government, working together to build a better America.
There's a plane waiting for us to take us to Miami in an hour, Molly. Don't make a big thing about it. I know it was you, Fredo. You broke my heart. You broke my heart.
That is one of the most iconic scenes, arguably, in movie history, featuring Al Pacino in The Godfather 2. Last week, Joe had the chance to sit down with the legendary Academy Award-winning actor who recently released his memoir entitled Sonny Boy, which was his childhood nickname. Pacino and Joe reflected on his incredible journey from an apartment super in Manhattan to playing one of the greatest characters ever, Michael Corleone, under direction of Francis Ford Coppola. Take a look.
It's a great honor.
Oh, it's an honor to be here.
Such a great honor.
Thank you, Joe.
You had a lot of odd jobs. And reading this book, I found out I lived in an apartment on 68th and Central Park West.
I can't believe it.
I'm walking in, and this lady says to me, she goes, you know, Pacino was a super here.
Yeah.
He may have been one of the worst ever. I'm like, yeah, whatever. And then I'm reading in the book.
Yeah.
And you're in Super at this apartment complex.
I was like young, 21, 22, and I had someone took a photo of me. You know, actors get photos, they call
Right.
8x10s. And it was one of these posed photos.
Yeah.
And I put it on the door
Yeah.
of with Band-Aids.
Yeah.
To keep it on the door of Super.
Wow.
And I put Super underneath the picture.
But you went through some tough times. But Martin Sheen, who's just a wonderful, beautiful man.
Oh, yeah.
That comes through in your book too. Talk about Marty Sheen.
He came into my class, Marty Sheen, and he just did this Iceman Cometh monologue.
Mm-hmm.
And I never seen acting that great.
Like that, yeah.
It was great acting. And I was, you know, I was enamored with him. And he and I there was a place called the Living Theater. It was on 14th Street and 6th Avenue. And we were working for them at the theater, putting down you have to set up the stage before the actors start doing it at
Right.
8 o'clock. So we would lay the rugs and stuff. I remember being in the back with Marty, and we're all dirtied up because we used to clean the toilets and stuff like that. We're sitting in the back of the theater looking at the play, you know, saying, my God, look at that. That's amazing.
So you had success in the theater.
Yeah.
And then your agent says to you, I need you to fly out to the West Coast, see Francis Ford Coppola.
Francis saw me in the play.
Right.
And I had a manager by that time. I'd done a couple of plays, and I
Right.
also won a Tony Award.
Right.
So I was a little bit in the conversation.
Right.
You know. So he obviously saw the play, and he asked me to come out to San Francisco through the agent. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, I don't want to go there. I was afraid of planes.
You didn't want to fly.
Yeah, I
Right.
didn't want to fly. Yeah. So my manager says, you're going out with me. I'll go with you. And so I went there, and I got to know Francis. So he knew me a little before he called me for Godfather.
And he believed in you,
He
even
did.
though nobody else did.
Oh, yeah.
And you felt it.
Well, when he called me in my house a year later. This is how this thing works, you know,
Right.
what we do. I mean, it works that way. And he said, hi, Alec. They gave me The Godfather. I'm going to direct The Godfather. I said, oh, wow, that's good. I thought, well, I knew this was a great big book. You
Right.
know, everybody
You'd
was talking
read it,
about it.
everybody talking
Everybody
about it,
read it.
yeah.
It was one of those. And so it was going to be a movie. Wow. And then he said, yeah. I said, well, that's great, Francis. I said, wow. He said, yeah, and I want you to play Michael.
Couldn't believe that, could you?
No, I thought then I said he's going too far.
Yeah.
You know, he's out there in San Francisco. God knows
No,
what he's taking.
what he's
right
taking,
now.
exactly.
Practically humored him.
Yeah.
Until I thought of Paramount Pictures. And Paramount Pictures, I thought, hires him. They're smart.
Right.
They know how good he is. They know how much. He's a genius. And so I thought, well, they're smart. And he wants me, and that's not so smart. You know, I'm just, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway, I said, call my grandmother up.
Right.
She was the only one left in my family. And I said, Granny, I think, you know, they're asking me, you know the book, The Godfather? And I said, oh, yeah, I heard of it, you know. Yeah, I said, but they want me to be in it. Can you imagine that? I'm going to play Michael. And she calls me back in about 15 minutes, and she says, oh, Sonny, Granddaddy was born there. Corleone.
Unbelievable.
My grandfather was born